Welcome, everybody, to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Thank you for joining me, and thank you all for bearing with me. As you know, I've been in a bit of a studio transition. It's been a little bit rocky, but we are getting everything worked out, believe me. So please keep me in your prayers. I trust that video is good, sound is good today. Again, if you ever see problems or an issue arises and you're watching the live stream, email me at ewjackson@ewjackson.com and say, hey, no sound, low sound, no video, why aren't you on, whatever, okay? Because we need your help in order to do quality control and make sure that we're coming across the way we're supposed to. So thank you all for your patience with us. But it's great to be with you today. Again, I had a little bit of a false start yesterday, so let me backtrack and cover some of the stuff I covered yesterday. Number one, on July the 14th, that's 7/14, we are having a 2 Chronicles 7/14 patriotic rally to secure America's future. On 7/14, a 2 Chronicles 7/14 patriotic rally to secure America's future. If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. So I hope that you will join me. That is, again, Friday, July the 14th, 7/14. The rally starts at 7, but there's a reception at 6. I'm going to have books there. It's a big deal. There's going to be a big announcement. So I hope that you will come and participate. We're going to have other speakers. We're putting that together now, but it's going to be a wonderful event. And look, we've got to save this country, folks. We've got to save America. And I really believe that we are at the precipice of losing our culture. And when I say losing our culture, I mean losing the Judeo-Christian foundations of our culture. Breitbart famously said, Andrew Breitbart famously said, politics is downstream from culture. And I say culture is downstream from a nation's spirituality. When the spirituality goes, the culture goes. And when the culture goes, the politics goes. And George Washington warned us in notes that he wrote for his first inaugural speech. He warned us that even our Constitution, as well crafted as it was, as stable as it's been, could not withstand what he called corrupted morals and overwhelming ambition. That, in other words, the desire of people to have more power than the Constitution allows, and corrupted morals that say, I don't care what a piece of paper says, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, would ultimately destroy the documents that have held this nation together for almost a quarter of a millennium. He warned us about that. I think we're at that point. And let me just back up for a second and say this. Remember, culture is not stuff that's written down, although sometimes it is codified in writings. I've said, for example, that the Declaration of Independence is not merely a legal document, is not merely a what you call an international statement to the world of America's independence and sovereignty. It's a cultural document as well. It says, this is who we are. This is the basis of our sovereignty. This is the basis of our independence. So it was really a cultural document as well, defining the fundamental beliefs of a nation. And the fundamental belief is that rights and freedoms come from Almighty God, not from man, not from a king, not from a president, not from a potentate. And that's a powerful cultural norm. You know, we used to say in our country, for example, because the norm, the cultural norm, was freedom of speech, I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. You don't hear that anymore. Because now people say, well, if I don't like what you say, I'm going to try to stop you from saying it. I'm going to try to prevent you from even being heard. I'm going to deplatform you. I may even physically attack you because you shouldn't have a right to be heard. But that's not the basis upon which America was founded. America was founded on the basis that, no, every individual has freedom, and I may not like what you have to say, so therefore, as a free American, my job is to refute what you say, to say, here's why you're wrong. and to try to persuade my fellow Americans that I'm right and you're wrong. And we have that debate in the marketplace of ideas and let the American people decide. But when you have a situation in which people say, well, you know what? We're going to indoctrinate people with one set of ideas, and we're going to censor any ideas that contradict what we want people to think. That is not a free constitutional republic. That is totalitarianism. That is tyranny. And that's the direction in which our culture is going. Things are classified now as hate speech, so you can't say those things. Well, look, you don't have a constitutional right not to be offended. I mean, people say things that I may not like, say things that I find offensive. I still defend their right to say them because that's what freedom requires. If I start saying, well, I don't like what that person has to say, let's stop them from speaking. Guess what? Sooner or later, someone comes along and says, I don't like what E.W. Jackson has to say. Let's stop him from speaking. And we've seen just that. So culture is a set of ideas, beliefs, virtues, principles that are not necessarily codified in any written document, but represent the basis upon which a nation operates, the attitudes of its people. And so our culture, our American culture, has really been based upon three fundamental ideas: faith in God as the author of our freedom and our rights; family as the primary institution of culture in which we teach people and grow people and develop people to be productive and decent citizens and human beings; and freedom, the idea that each individual is free, that liberty is not collective, liberty is individual. So in other words, my liberty is not based upon my status, whatever you might class that to be, or anybody else's status, whether it's their race, their religion, their ethnicity, their ancestral origin. No. Individual liberty is based upon my liberty as a human being without regard to where I descended from, where I came from, the complexion of my skin, my background. No, I am free as an individual because God made me free. That used to be a cultural norm. That's being eroded. No. Now freedom is collective. It's collective. So in effect, really, your freedom as a darker complexion person is different than your freedom as a lighter complexion person. Or if I may make a finer point here, your freedom as an American of African ancestry is different than your freedom as an American of European ancestry. And that works both ways. Well, because as a darker complexion American, you are oppressed. As a lighter complexion American, you are an oppressor. And so therefore, you must be constrained. And as a darker complexion American, you must be assisted. You must be helped. You must be given extra support. That's not freedom, folks. That's not freedom. That's the government trying to engineer people's lives and trying to control the outcomes of life. Individual liberty is the basis upon which this nation was founded. Individual liberty. In fact, I'll tell you, I always marvel that our founding fathers, most of whom were patricians and who came from what you would call the elite families of England, I'm just amazed that they didn't create a rigid class structure in America. And I'm not saying there wasn't a class structure, that it didn't exist, but as the country developed, it was just clear that America was a meritocracy, not a class society, so that poor people end up becoming rich. Powerless, unimportant people end up becoming powerful. That doesn't happen in a lot of places in the world, folks. That's unusual. But that's not written. Look, upward mobility is not written into our laws. It is part of our culture. And if you destroy that, it's not long before the Constitution and the government follows. And before you know it, you don't have a constitutional republic based upon individual liberty. You've got some kind of totalitarian government that maybe through a series of excuses, without officially denouncing the Constitution or officially repealing the Constitution, unofficially ignores the Constitution. I mean, we saw that during COVID, right? We saw it during COVID. I mean, just think about the way many government officials behaved. They completely disregarded the constitutional liberties of the American people. And even then, when we were being fed what we now know were a bunch of lies about the thing, but we had no basis for disputing it. People were skeptical, but we had no real basis for disputing it. So we were being told a bunch of lies, and on the basis of those lies, our constitutional liberties were being trampled, and we were told it was for our own good. That's the pathway of tyranny. That's not the pathway of freedom. The pathway of freedom says, here's the best information we have. Let's put it out there to the American people. Let's debate it. Let's talk about it. Let's let the American people question it. Let's go back and refine it. If we're not entirely accurate, let's go back and make it more accurate. And let's present it to the American people again. And let people decide. Instead of telling people, no, you can't go visit your loved one. And many people watch from afar as their loved one died. Loved ones died in hospitals and nursing homes because they couldn't go in. You've got to stay 6 feet from everybody else, and so you can't have a church service, and you can't. Some of the fundamental things that people want. You can't have a family gathering. Remember, you can't have your family over to your house because that's dangerous. You remember when they were actually telling people, if you go to, in Kentucky, the governor there tried to tell, I think it was the governor, tried to tell people, if you even showed up at church, we were going to take down your license number and fine you $500 for going to church. In my state, the Commonwealth of Virginia, our idiot governor put out a curfew. You had to be in by a certain hour, and you couldn't come out before. I mean, as if that was supposed to achieve something. It didn't. All of this stuff was a deprivation of life, liberty, and property without due process of law. And now we find out that even the basis upon which they did all that stuff, none of it was true. The 6-foot distancing, they made it up. The lockdowns, we find out, probably worked against us because it weakened people's immune system, and it made it easier for the disease to spread within close quarters, and the best place to be during that time was outside. And the mask. Now we know that a cloth mask does absolutely nothing, and you had the whole country masked up. And of course, the shot itself. You take the shot, you won't get COVID, you won't spread COVID. A lie. But they were only too quick to grab it and use it to take full control over the American people, shut down our businesses, lock us in our homes, tell us you couldn't go out at certain times. I mean, at one point, remember, in some states where you had to have papers to prove you were going to work or something like that. I mean, they tried to turn it into a police state. And I will never forget, I think it's Governor Murphy of New Jersey, when asked, the things you're doing, are they constitutional? He said, that's above my pay grade, which is another way of saying, I don't care whether they're constitutional or not. This is what I think we got to do. This is what we're going to do. What you saw there was, in my view, the symptoms of a cultural revolution that had already been taking place, but that accelerated and is now, it's in full bloom now, which is, and when I say cultural revolution, here's what I mean. We don't care about the ideas, the principles, the virtues, the values, the norms that most people believe in this country. We don't care about them and we don't like them, and we're going to upend them. We're going to overthrow them. We don't believe in individual liberty. We believe that liberty is a collective thing. I don't know whether you remember. I'd love to find the video where Biden was talking about the people saying, well, wait, this is a violation of our freedom during COVID. He was sneered, freedom, as if some kind of made-up word that people are using to defy the government. I remember people saying every edict by a mayor, a governor, or for that matter, the president was law. It was not law. It was not law. It was an executive order. And Americans don't work for public officials. We work for the companies we work with or work for ourselves. We don't work for them. They don't get to order us around. There's a process by which they get to control our behavior, and that process is called legislation, which must be passed by a legislative body and then signed by an executive. And then it has the force of law. But because some governor, some mayor, some city council group decides this is the way we want it, that doesn't make it law. That just makes it what they want. But you had, even sadly, some of these police officers, that's the law. It was not the law. It really, from a legal standpoint, it was no more than a recommendation. Now, in some states where they declared a state of emergency, which gave a governor certain powers, you could argue, okay, well, by virtue of that, his edicts in certain cases might have the force of law. But even there, when the edicts are unconstitutional, a state of emergency does not give anybody the right to any public official, the right to override the Constitution of the United States. We are in a cultural revolution. That was really the first major sign of how far we had gone. And by the way, all the people, 99.99% of the public officials who were engaged in this tyrannical, totalitarian lockdown mindset were Democrats. Because that's where they are. They don't believe in individual liberty. They believe in controlling people because they think they know best. And in that sense, they're really no different than Xi Jinping. They're no different than Maduro's down in Venezuela. They think they know best, and therefore they think they have the right to force on people their idea of how life should be lived. Destroyed a bunch of businesses, destroyed the American economy, almost destroyed the American economy. Thank God it's very resilient. It destroyed a bunch of people's lives. We're still dealing with the aftermath, the educational deficits, the suicides, the depressions, all the things that came out of that crazy period in which the government just decided we know best, everybody else sit down, shut up, obey, and don't question. Oh, and by the way, if you question, that's considered disinformation, and we will censor you. We will work with big tech to make sure that your voice cannot be heard. Well, that too is a violation of the Constitution, folks. Heard any apologies lately about that? Of course not, because they won't. Because that's who they really are. That's what they really want. And by the way, I'm not saying there aren't some Republicans like this. I mean, I just read an article today where 20 Republicans joined in to stop the censure of Adam Schiff, who is, as far as I'm concerned, a rogue legislator because he lied about Trump for 2 years and he had evidence of this and evidence of that. He had evidence of nothing. He was lying, just lying right in the face of the American people because he hated Trump. He wanted to get him. And again, folks, when you throw out those fundamental cultural norms, anything goes by any means necessary. I don't like Adam Schiff. I don't like what he stands for, but I wouldn't lie on him because I don't lie. But you see, they don't care about lying because the only thing that matters for them is getting their way and destroying anybody who they see as being in their way. I launched into all of that talking about this 2 Chronicles 7:14 patriotic rally to secure America's future on July 14th at the Richmond Marriott, 500 East Broad Street in Richmond, Virginia. I hope you will come, no matter where you are. And this is not a Virginia rally. This is an American rally. This is a rally for the American people. We're just doing it there because this is my home area, my home base, and we're hoping to turn out people from all across Virginia, but also all across the country. So I hope you'll come. I hope you'll be a part of it. And there's more to come in that regard. I will be telling you more about speakers. I'll be telling you more about what's going to happen at that rally, because it's going to be great. It's going to be very, very exciting. So that was not only an announcement about the rally, but also a little bit of what I covered yesterday in terms of the cultural revolution that we are in. And folks, we've got to be counter-revolutionaries. We have got to stand up against the onslaught. We have to. And say, wait a minute, there's fundamental truth, there's fundamental decency, there's fundamental rights, there's fundamental honor. We're going to stand up for those things. We don't care whether you like it or not. You can call us whatever you want. But we're going to continue to stand up for what we know is right. And by the way, stand up meaning our voices are going to be heard too. We're not going to try to force on others what we believe, but we're going to compete in the marketplace of ideas, and we're going to compete in the public square to have the laws reflect our values, our principles, our ideals. Because that's what every American ought to be doing. And we'll let the American people decide what set of ideals they want governing this nation. And you know, when people say, folks, well, you can't legislate morality. Well, again, it's just one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. Because, folks, all legislation is based upon someone's moral vision, someone's idea of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what is best and what is not. All of it. All legislation, in effect, in some way, legislates morality. Look, laws against stealing, what do you think that is? That's legislating morality. And on down the road, against fraud, against kidnapping, against murder, all of these things, these are laws that are trying to set forth a moral vision for how we ought to conduct ourselves. The only question is, whose values do they represent? One would hope that our laws reflect the values of the majority of the American people. But I frankly think the left doesn't care about what the majority of the American people think, because they think they know what is best for all of us, and they're going to force it on us whether we like it or not. That's why if I go to a college campus to speak, it's a big hullabaloo, because certain forces have decided that a person like me doesn't have a right to be heard. Somebody else comes along, like an AOC or some other left-wing nutcase. Oh, yeah, come on in and tell us how the world's going to end in 10 years because of climate change. We'd love to hear that. Come on and tell us how we can make sure we kill more babies. That'd be great. Yeah, let's. Oh, that E.W. Jackson's going to come in and tell us that there's a serious moral question that we've got to answer with regard to abortion. We don't want to hear that. And the government will cooperate in making sure that I'm not heard. We found out that big tech was colluding with the government in censoring us during the COVID thing. I got suspended from YouTube 3 times. And by the way, for things that I said that proved to be true. One of the things I said was natural immunity always is superior to any other approach to protection from illness. And once you've had the disease, you've got natural immunity, and that is more reliable than any shot. They took me off for that. I was right. My wife and I never got the shot. We had COVID once in November of 2020. This is 2023. Yeah, November of 2020. We had it one time, never got it again. And we were around people who had it, but we never got it again. We know people who got the shot and got boosted who had it several times. our natural immunity kicked in and protected us. So we never were going to get the shot because we didn't trust it from the very beginning. Too quick, too fast. At any rate, folks, I need your help. I need your support. Thank you for your prayers, by the way. I want to remind you that my book, Sweet Land of Liberty, and thank you all for supporting my book. It's not yet a bestseller, but it is definitely selling, and we're grateful to you for that. But this book, I am sending a free copy to anyone who signs up to be a Patriot Partner for Stan at $25 or more a month. In fact, I just signed a bunch of books last night. I told you I was going to catch up. I just signed a bunch of books last night that will be going out probably today, as a matter of fact, be shipping today. So if you know you signed up as a Patriot Partner and you didn't get your book yet, it's on the way. It is on the way. And so if you go to standamerica.us and sign up as a Patriot Partner, I will send you a signed, numbered copy of my book. And by the way, folks, just again, to emphasize, I don't have some surrogate signing books for me. I'm signing them personally. So when you get your book, know that it has been signed by me. And I'm personalizing every one of these Patriot Partner books so that I'm putting your name on it and then greeting you and numbering the book. And I'm numbering the books myself. You're getting books from the author's stash, okay? But we need your help. We are trying to get to 500 Patriot Partners this year. We're up to 251. We're trying to get to 500. We have what is this? So we have 6 months left. 6 months left to get there. But we can do it. I'm confident that we can do it. So what is that? Well, that's a little bit less than 50 Patriot Partners a month, or about 7, 8 Patriot Partners a day. We can do that. No problem. With your prayers and your help, we can get it done. If you haven't signed up as a Patriot Partner, please do so. One other thing. You all know that we have signed up to purchase 142 acres of land as a campus for my church, the Called Church, for Stan, for our youth center, the William Jackson Youth Center. We want to have a full-blown youth center and gym. For our school, the Maximum Potential Christian Academy. And we want to have a warehouse for all of my books and materials and tapes and DVDs and CDs, and be able to send stuff out from the warehouse and be able to take care of everything in-house, which is what we really want to be able to do rather than having to farm anything out to anybody else for production. All of our T-shirts, all of our materials on the websites, we're going to have all that at the warehouse. And so the Promised Land Campus is our vision for what we want to do there. And we're asking for your help. The land costs $800,000. We have it secured with a rather hefty down payment, but we don't have the $800,000 in cash. So if you're watching right now and the Lord lays on your heart to donate $800,000 or $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, I told you all I had a vision of 2 checks, an $8 million check and a $160,000 check. So if you got one of those checks for me, send it on in. I mean it, folks. Send it on in. But look, I want you to know, for those of you who can give $5, $10, whatever it is, believe me, we appreciate it and we honor that. We know that that's your money. You've earned it, and sharing it with us is a great honor, and we are deeply grateful, whatever the amount might be. The clock is ticking on closing on this property, and so if you're going to do a major move to help us purchase it, now is the time, okay? Now is the time. We're going to get it in the name of Jesus. We're going to get this land. So, all right. In the time, oh my goodness, time we got left, folks, I'm out of time. I'll come back to it tomorrow. What I really wanted to talk to you about, and so I'll tease with this for tomorrow. Joe Biden made an interesting statement on the White House lawn when he was talking about the whole LGBTQ agenda for children. I call it the SPCG movement, the sexual perversion child grooming movement, because folks, no normal human being wants to talk to kindergartners about their sexuality or show them explicit pictures of people having sex. No normal human being wants to do that. No normal adult. I mean, just think, when I say that, as normal adults, we almost feel embarrassed to even think of that. And yet we got people who are telling us there's something wrong with us because we're trying to stop them from doing it. You all know that at this White House thing, they had these gender confused people bearing their chests, operations either to put breasts on them for these men or to take breasts off them for these women. They showed that for the camera to see. I mean, this stuff is degenerate, folks. It's degenerate. But here's what I want to point out, and we'll come back to this tomorrow as part of this cultural revolution. Joe Biden said this: "These are our kids, not somebody else's kids. They're all our kids." And then he drilled down further to say this: "There's no such thing as someone else's child." I beg to differ. There is. And when I come back tomorrow, I'm going to tell you a little story about something that happened to me very recently that illustrates this point. We all ought to care about children. We all ought to love children. But I don't get to tell you how to raise your children, even if I think you're wrong. Unless you're doing something illegal, then that's a different matter. But even if I think your values are wrong, your approach is wrong, I don't get to tell you how to raise your children. And nobody gets to tell me how to raise mine. But apparently, the Democrat Party and the left have decided that they know better how to raise your children than you do, and they know better how to introduce your children to this sexual confusion than you do, and they want to do it. And in some states, they're actually trying to pass laws to say that parents shouldn't be involved and can't be involved, that the child has the ability to give consent to hormone treatments and other things without the parent's knowledge. And the school will keep it a secret from the parent. And here's the President of the United States saying, there's no such thing as someone else's child. Again, I mean, there are a lot of really dumb things. This is probably one of the dumbest and one of the most evil and wicked things. Because really what he's saying is, again, just like liberty is individual, but not for the left, not for the Democrats. They see it as collective. Now they're saying our children are our collective responsibility. And we all get to decide what happens with our children. You know what that's akin to, folks? A totalitarian culture. Yeah, Hitler did that. Mao did that. Every tyrant feels that the children of their nation belongs to them, and that they, not the parents, have the ultimate say over the rearing of those children. And that's what this president is hinting at. And it's monstrous. And the results are monstrous. We're going to come back to that tomorrow as we further discuss this cultural revolution and how you and I are going to deal with it. Well, that's going to do it for today. Again, thank you all for your prayers. I love you. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me and all that God wants to do with me and through me and to me and for me. Because, folks, as I've said many times, you can't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror. You've got to look ahead. You can glance from time to time to get your orientation, see what's around you, but you can't drive a car looking in the rearview mirror. You got to look ahead. You can't create a life. You can't preserve a nation by obsessing over the past. Instead of obsessing over what's happened to us, we should be obsessing over what God wants to do through us. Where there is no vision, the people perish. So you stand up, you step up, you speak up, you refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.